Thank you, Anne. Thank you so much. Thank you all for joining us this evening for a really exciting and very important and timely conversation with Wyla Eason. I'm going to read Wyla's bio in full because you need to know as much about her as possible, okay? Because you're in for an evening of inspiration. Wyla Eason is an award-winning educator and entrepreneur who is largely credited with pioneering the ethnic toy market at mass market stores. As an assistant professor of professional practice at Rutgers University, her focus is on business communications, multicultural marketing, and digital marketing. She received an MBA from Harvard Business School and a BA from Fitchburg State University. She has earned numerous awards and honors for founding and growing to $5 million Olmec Toys, a multicultural toy company, including an honorary PhD from Bloomfield College, the Business Enterprise Trust Award from President Bill Clinton in 1986. She was the former director of learning and development for RGA, a digital advertising agency, and for the Center of Excellence in Advertising at Howard University. She previously was a lecturer at the business school at Medgar Evers College, City University of New York. She also taught e-commerce at CUNY School of Professional Studies. In 2020, she received the Women's Leaders in Innovation Award from the New Jersey Chamber of Commerce, the Education Award from the African American Chamber of Commerce of New Jersey, and was featured in MSNBC's Into America podcast with Tremaine Lee. In 2021, she entered into a licensing agreement with Mattel to reproduce her line of Sunman action figures. Eason, a Tulsa, Oklahoma native, resides in Newark, New Jersey. Please help me to welcome Wyla Eason. You're welcome. Wyla, I mean, what a distinguished bio. And I think, it only begins to touch the surface of who you are and what you've been able to establish and overcome. And I just really like to know, how did you get started on this journey to really found the ethnic toy market? I know that wasn't your initial goal, was it?
When my son was 3 years old, he said he couldn't be a superhero because he was Black. And so we went out and said, okay, we'll find you a Black superhero toy, and went out on the market and couldn't find any. And that's what led to the creation of Sunman. And the reason he's named Sunman is because we wanted to instill in him and other kids like him that your skin color is your power. It is something to be proud of. And so Sunman's skin can't be pierced, cut, bruised, and it comes from his magical melanin skin. And we started talking melanin in 1985. So before it became, because we started researching how does one's skin become brown, and it is because of the melanin, which is also a protective element in our skin. So that is actually how I started with the first toy, which was Sunman.
So your son turned to you and said he couldn't be a superhero. And that was how you came up with this whole idea?
I can tell you that, and I don't know why, maybe it's ancestral, it really hit me like, okay, he was 3 years old. Being a superhero is all about play and imagination. If your imagination is limited because of your skin color, who you are, what you are, your being, then that was just a very frightening thought to me. That if you can't imagine yourself as a superhero, which is something completely imaginary, filled with creativity in your play world, if your play world is suddenly clamped down because of your color, Then it said to me, well, if he thinks that because of his skin color, what's that going to do with his future in terms of what else is he thinking is a limitation? I mean, something, so that's why it was such a frightening thought to me. And also I was surprised. I thought, okay, I'll be able to go buy one. So the fact that I couldn't buy one, and then I started talking to other mothers, and other mothers were saying they were having trouble finding something for their boys to play with. So it was like, okay, so there's a bigger issue here. Then I looked at the size of the market and saw, the demographics in 85 were showing the changes that we are seeing today. That if you look at America below the age of 3, you would see immediately from the census data, America is browning up, and it's going to be browner and browner when we get to 2022, where we are today. That the so-called minority is becoming the majority, just from census data information. So I started looking at that. Then I looked at what money are we spending in the toy market, and that was even more the impetus. But I must say, another part of the influence was I had the honor and privilege to talk to Dr. Kenneth Clark. And I don't know if you know, Dr. Kenneth Clark, along with his wife, Mamie Clark, were the ones who devised the Black Doll Study, where they put the black dolls in front of the little kids and the white doll in front of the little kids and said, which one is pretty? Which one is smart? Which one is fun? Which one do you want to play with? And all the little black kids pointed to the white doll as having all the positive characteristics. And then they asked them, which one looks like you? And the kids very sheepishly, almost with shame in their faces, pointed to the black doll as if this was like the worst fate that they could possibly have. And I talked to him about the psychology of toys and what kids play with, and understood when they play with toys, they're imagining that's who they are. That's a part of their nurturing. That's a part of their possibilities. That's a part of their imagination. And he told me it's very important that kids see toys that look like that. So it was a combination of all of those factors that said, okay, I've got to try to make this toy.
Well, you've pointed out a lot of very important steps that happen. Not only did you listen to a child and you empathized with your child and tried to see it from his perspective, but then you also used research, starting with talking to other moms and then doing census research and having this conversation with Dr. Clark. But to me, I still wonder, what was it that made you take all of that information and say, okay, I know this stuff now. I understand that there's an opportunity. I understand there's a market, but now I'm going to be an entrepreneur. Was that something that was even on your mind to become an entrepreneur?
Not at all.
Okay.
No, not at all. At the time this happened, I was a successful editor at Standard & Poor's, analyzing profit and loss statements and talking to analysts who were creating spreadsheets and recommending what stocks institutional investors should be in. So my market was institutional investors and what stocks should they be buying. So I was very, very, very far away from, oh, now I'm going to start a business. I somehow, the ignorance is bliss, thought that this would be something easy to do. It wasn't until I went to China for the first time on that 22-hour flight while I was still working at Standard & Poor's, and then came back, met with the factory owner, gave him the designs, etc., and came back like the next day. And people said, nobody goes to China for a day. That's, you stay over there 4 or 5 days, you do what you're supposed to do. And then everything started taking off. Okay, we've got to do packaging. We have to do design. We have to write a comic book. We have to do all these elements. And at the time, my former husband was in finance. And I was like, can we afford for me to not work right now? Because this is getting a lot bigger than I thought it was going to be. So he was like, yeah. And then so I kind of eased into this. It wasn't like, oh, I'm going to be a toy maker, entrepreneur. This is what I'm doing. And then, of course, we were able to raise money from others to even get the first mold made. And that's when I found out how very expensive it was. $60,000 just to get off. And this was in '85, just to get off the bat to begin to do it. But no, I didn't. It was not, this is what I'm going to do, be an entrepreneur. It was only after I realized that's what was happening till let me get the full business plan, get this put together the right way.
So how long did it actually take you then to find success as you define it?
I have to say success was when the toy first came out. To me, that was the definition of success.
And when was that?
That was in 1985. So
It was all in this.
well, this actually started in '84 when he said that. We were on holiday in Jamaica at the time, then came back. About June of '85, we actually had a sample and the prototype. And then that's when the problem started. I was just happy. We've got the toy now. But the problem started after the toy was produced to like, okay, let's get it on the shelf. That's when I got introduced to retail America, circa 1985.
I want to talk about that. Right. So can you talk about some of the challenges that you met early on while you were still kind of barely self-identifying as an entrepreneur, or maybe you were at this point, but some of the challenges that you faced?
In terms of the manufacturing or?
Okay, really, you can pick a challenge.
Okay, all right. First of all, I got lucky. My lawyer had a client who was a toy manufacturer because I didn't know anything about this industry. And so that person told me how you've got to do everything and things I didn't know. I'm not an artist, that you have to create images of your product from sketch out a view from the head, the feet, the left side, the right side, the front, and the back, because that was before CAD, computer animated design, so that you could do all that on a computer and hand it out. So my cousin's boyfriend was an artist. God rest his soul, Floyd Cooper. If you look his name up now, he's got tons of children's books out. He ended up being a very successful children's book editor, or illustrator. So I asked Floyd, I told him, I drew my stick figure and said, this is what I want it to look like. So he drew all the designs. I took them over to China. The first thing is, are the molds going to be right? A lot of work on the color of the skin, the features. We didn't want to just do a white doll dipped in chocolate that was going to just look like everything that was already out on the marketplace. So it was like making sure the sculpt, which is also the name of the company, was Olmec. And the reason the company was named Olmec is because the Olmec Aztec Indians, from the book by Ivan Van Sertima, the former professor at Rutgers, who God rest his soul was dead. He wrote a book called They Came Before Columbus. And in that book, okay. Oh no, good. Amen, Carter helps. And in that book, he shows all these images of Olmecs, Africans with African features, noses, lips, so that in Mexico before Columbus, so that it shows the journey of Africans into South America before Columbus made his journey. So, and toys are all about sculpting. Toys are all about sculpting the face, the body, but very much the face is it's artisans deal with toy manufacturers and toy design. In fact, kind of sidebar, I'm talking with Principal Pitts, the principal of New York School of Fashion, because at FIT now, Fashion Institute of Technology, and for some time, they have had a toy design as a part of fashion design And when I talked to Mattel, they were like, there are very few people of color into toy design because kids don't even know that's a profession. So I'm trying to bring that over here. Just
Still innovating the industry, right?
trying, trying, bring along some more people, you know? So anyway, understanding the sculpture and then reviewing it, the color's not right, nose is not right, the hair's not right. He has a little afro because that's what was popular then. And then the packaging and making sure everything, and we wrote a comic book. My sister actually helped me put a comic book together for his origin story because all toys have to have an origin story. And so his original name is Sunny Ali, and he comes from the land of the sun, and he comes down to America, basically, because Pighead, his nemesis, is trying to steal the energy of the sun. So his role is to protect it. So getting that put together and then packaging it, getting it made, understanding quantities, shipping, containers, etc. All of that kind of knowledge was learning on the job.
Wow. So not one challenge, but every challenge.
Every challenge. Yes.
But you mentioned that your attorney was really helpful in helping you to connect to a manufacturer.
He had a client who was in the toy business. So that person helped me understand, okay, this is what it is, this is what you do. And it was like quick learning, but again, ignorance is bliss. I had no idea how complex it was.
Sometimes it's good not to know, right?
Right.
But it seemed to me that for someone who was a novice in the field, you were able to assemble an effective team. How did you go about selecting people to work with?
Well, okay, it started asking, like my cousin, do you know an artist, her boyfriend, somebody to help me put the packaging together. Again, it was basically asking people, who do you know back then? Because there weren't that many people who knew it. But another thing about 85, let me just kind of put that in context. That's when FUBU was out. I remember they were walking around for us, by us. They were walking around. I was living in Brooklyn selling their sweatshirts, and one of the guys was dating a girl who worked for me. So it was like, that was another way to get designers. Spike Lee was out at that time selling his products and his movies. So there was a lot of energy in New York at that time in 85 for small businesses. Earl Graves, God rest his soul, who started Black Enterprise, was able to help me. Percy Sutton, who you may or may not know, was a borough of Manhattan president. He was also helpful. He introduced us to people like Ruby Dee, Ossie Davis, people who were influential in helping us connect. And I got to tell you, this was before the internet. This was before social media. Everything was, high touch, not high tech.
Person to person, relationships.
Person to person relationships. And what I can say is back then, it was also the beginning of MESBIC, Small Business Minority Enterprise Corporation, which had been started, believe this or not, under Nixon to help bring about more businesses. I later found out that the MESBICs were started because they felt that there were too many Blacks who were Democrats. So if they could get more Blacks into business, then they would become, by definition, Republicans. Anyway, the big conversion was starting then. But there were lots of things that were going on at that time. So what I want to say is access was easy. And Percy Sutton did introduce us to a lot of people. He's how I met Dr. Clark. And back then it was sort of easy. If you were starting something and you were into business, you could tell somebody and they would connect you. They would hook you up. It was easy back then. And like you said, the personal connection, and people were willing to make introductions for you. So that's kind of how I found people. I think we may have lost some of that. Now it's more cliquish, who you know, but there you could just introduce yourself. This is who I am. Can you help me out? And so it was a different era. It was more innovative.
Yeah, but I think that that is still relevant. You know, we're all still people and we do exist outside of the metaverse and all of that. So hopefully that advice, it still stands today. I think it certainly helped me to, you know, value relationships and to just invest in people, have those conversations, networking, all of that was certainly something, is certainly something that I still believe in. But I might just be old school.
No. I think old school, people to people, who you know, introducing yourself, getting to know people, telling them what you're doing, and I still believe in, it may be old school, but asking you shall receive, knocking the door shall open. You know, the rest of that I forget. Get the third part. Anyway,
We get the
makes it
point.
okay.
We get the
Bottom
point.
line, you've got to put yourself out there in order for to make something happen for you.
Well, thank goodness you put yourself out there and not only created Sunman and all of the universe that he's in, but you created a whole market.
Yeah, well, what we did after we did Sunman, again, back to the census data, we then also created Hispanic, Asian, Native American, and even did a white toy as well, because we were trying to be, back then, the multicultural toy company before that was a word, a term, a movement like it is today.
It is a movement. So now that it is a movement built a lot on your shoulders, what are you working on now?
Well, actually, I'm working on a girl's hairline.
What?
Yeah, that uses yarn, creatively different colors of yarn. From an old friend from the toy business, we've known each other for over 30 years, and she sells at Michael's and all those kinds of things, and she's into yarn. So I was talking to her about, how can we use yarn creatively for girls' hair play? So that's what I'm working on now.
My goddaughter will thank you for that.
Oh,
She will thank you for that. So get that going.
okay,
Okay.
I will.
But tell me more about what's happening with Sunman now.
Okay, well, back in 2021, we're now 22, that was last year, I got uh, an email. Well, actually, it was a message from a person at Mattel, and he was on LinkedIn. LinkedIn, hi. I was looking at an article about you, or he listened to a podcast or something, and I, want to commend you on what you've done throughout the years. And I'm head of all boys toys at Mattel. And by the way, I'm African American. And I was like, oh, really? The things have changed from years ago. So we started chatting, and their 40th anniversary of He-Man. Now, let me explain this. When my son made those comments back in '85, the biggest toy on the market was He-Man. And He-Man, blonde, white character. That was who everybody
I remember She-Ra
Okay.
in that universe.
All right. So then you know what I'm talking about. We also made a line of black girls' toys, butterfly one, and Amanda and Belina. To go along to compete with the She-Ra.
It's the first time I'm hearing about that.
Oh, really? Yeah, we ended up doing a whole line of toys. We did Black by Design, which was a memory matching game. I got licenses from Coretta Scott King as well as Betty Shabazz to do a Malcolm X and a Martin Luther King action figure back in the day too, in the early 90s. And we did a line of bronze bombers, which was celebrating the 396th Infantry of the all Black infantry from Tuskegee. So we did other characters that were out there. But getting back to what you were saying, so He-Man was the biggest toy that was out there at the time. And so that's why we brought out Sunman to have that same kind of name in a toy concept known as Fit into Play. So fast forward. It's the
Wait,
40th.
what is fit into play?
Oh, okay. Fit into play is a toy concept that says if you are creating a toy, buyers are going to ask you, well, what does this fit into play with? In other words, if you're doing a fashion doll, can she wear Barbie's dresses? Can she fit in her house? Can she ride in her car? Is she the same size? So when you're designing a toy that's going to be competing with another toy, or you want it to be a part of that toy line, since Mattel didn't have black and brown characters in their line, Sunman's size 5 3/4 was meant to fit into play with He-Man. So if you had He-Man, you could bring Sunman in and be like, oh, it's just like he's one of the other. So fast.
Sorry, I keep interrupting.
Oh,
you,
no,
but-
no, please do. Please do. I'm saying things that I know that I need clarification on that, others do. So fast forward, it's the 40th anniversary this year of the Masters of the Universe line from Mattel. So as a part of their innovation, what they did was license the rights to produce Sunman and all the other characters as a part of their 40th anniversary splash.
Wow.
So that's where we are today. So the characters are coming out one by one. Sunman is already out in Target, Walmart, and Amazon. Pighead just came out, just like this week. He's on the shelf right now. Digitino, which is the Latin characters, coming out soon. Space Sumo will be out this Christmas. Boltman, who's the Native American, he will also be out, as well as all the other characters that we have. So
All of the other characters.
yes, between now and the end of next year, all of the characters will be the whole collection.
Wow.
Oh, thank you. Thanks. Yeah, it's pretty cool, and it's just so ironic, but it's deliciously ironic to have a toy that you made 37 years ago to feel that need now, be almost bigger and more celebrated than it was back then. But that says something about the times catching up.
Absolutely. The times are catching up because, and I just want to say that Mattel's positioning of this as innovation
Yes, that's
in 2022.
right.
So inviting in diversity in 2022 is innovation, but you created the pathway for that to happen since 1985.
Well, what I always say is that when they say representation matters, yeah. But what I used to say is if you've never sat across the kitchen table from a little black or brown kid or somebody who looks like you really don't have any idea of what they're like, what they think about, or they're not a part of your psyche. They're not somebody you're focused on. And I think it was way more segregated, if you will, back then. Because when I came out with the toy, one of the major retailers, when I tried to get them to put it on the shelf, they were like, nope, black parents don't want black toys for their son. They might want them for their daughters. And another one told me, well, if you really had an idea, Mattel would have already done it. So they were just like, they were very dismissive. In the beginning, which I didn't tell you, how I got them on the shelf was we took out a full page ad in Ebony magazine. I remember it dearly because it cost $25,000 back then. That much I remember. And also, that's how the word got out. And then we started selling in beauty shops, barber shops, bodegas, mom and pop stores, sororities, fraternities, people who street vendors, people who were selling at the post office, people who were, side hustling money.
I was about to say, did you deputize some salespeople or what?
They just heard about it and they were selling it. That's how we. And then I had the success of the sales in the street to be able to go back to the retailers and say, people want this product.
But was that your plan? I mean,
Originally, I thought
essentially,
it would be on the shelf and it would be no problem. again, not knowing the industry. First, I didn't know all toys are shown in February of the previous Christmas. We came out in June. So many of them told me, missed the boat. We've already made our decisions on all the toys. So that meant we had to sell one whole season basically on our own, ma and pa, but it was successful. And that's how we showed, that proof of proof of concept. Thank you. This is a concept. People want it. We got sales. Put it on the shelf. But getting on the shelf, that was the challenge. That became the biggest challenge.
So, I mean, to accomplish that, how important was business planning?
Business planning, I probably redid my business plan every 2 or 3 years because it was like, where are the other avenues? Now I'm getting into the toy business. What are the other product lines that are selling, which is why we went into girls' dolls and games and historical figures. What is it that people are wanting out in the marketplace? So business planning was essential because also if you've got to figure out how much money do you need? What's going to be, how many products are you going to make? How are you going to price them? What are you going to charge for shipping? And then at that time, a lot of the digital processes were just starting, just-in-time inventory, where retailers stopped carrying the inventory and they shifted it to the manufacturer, and you got purchase orders that were like 7 days, that they would expire in 7 days, and you had to ship against it. So a lot of understanding projections for which products are selling the best. All of that. Very difficult. And you think toys, it's easy. Very difficult. It's like being in the fashion industry.
Well, yeah, it does sound a lot like that. And I'm really curious though, at what stage did you have your first business plan?
Oh, right. Probably. I remember staying up all night, several nights, when I first decided this is what we were going to do. Uh, Initially, before I even started talking to people who were important and could help. So I put the business plan together immediately.
That's really good advice.
Yeah.
Really good advice. Now, you mentioned some figures, the 25K for the Ebony magazine. I think you said 60,000 for the mold or what have you. So let's talk about raising money.
Okay.
How
All right.
did you go about raising money at different, especially in the early stages when you were more so in the concept phase?
Well, I wish we had GoFundMe and all the stuff that we got today, but it was again old-fashioned, high-touch on the phone. It was family and friends for the first 60K. It was all family raising that money, and then after that, it became going to investors who had more money. BT, Bob Johnson, um, as well as Earl Lewis with Black Enterprise, then getting introduced to people, other businesses who had money who would then invest. So and then some creative financing, like getting Toys R Us, which companies don't normally do, to put up the money for the production before the product was actually made, because when you're doing business overseas, and I guess many businesses require letters of credit. So you've got to put the money up 90 days before you even ship to see money, put up the money through a letter of credit first, then the next 30 days it's being made, then 30 days on the water for it to be shipped to you, and then into your warehouse to be sent out. So your revenue is 90 days after, and many days after that, because then the minute you ship it, they don't pay you. Big retailers can take 30 to 60. So you may be out of money 6 months before you realize that money.
And when did you learn that? That cycle of billing.
Again, I had to get introduced to factors. I don't know if you know factors, but the garment industry has them, where you've got receivables of $100,000 to sell those receivables from Toys R Us to your factor. Your factor then gives you, I don't know, 80, 90% of that money. They take whatever their cut is, and then you assign that invoice over to them. So when it's paid, they get the money, and then you've taken care of that.
This is gold right here. Because people don't know the steps, maybe even the large steps, but these are like the in-between steps, right? So now you've gotten this great order and you think everything is golden, but you don't know about the fact.
Exactly. And as you know, cash flow is king in a business. A lot of people buy a business and assess it on the cash flow. How fast is the money coming in? Which is why some businesses like restaurants, nail salons, hair salons, barbershops always have cash because they get it that day. And they're not waiting for vendors to pay them. We typically take 30 to 60, sometimes 90 days for you to get your money after you get shipped to someone. So that's also something that you don't know, and you don't know how deep the pockets have to be in order to be in business sometimes. Which is why people go before Shark Tank about a lot of their business, because they need that money in order to grow. That's the other part that you find out, that the bigger you get, the more money you need to stay in the game. And I kind of got to quote Biggie, more money, problems.
True statements, facts. So, having experienced what you've experienced over the past 37 years, what have you enjoyed most about starting your own enterprise, your own business?
It's been the little things. It's been going to pick my son up from nursery school after the toy had come out, and having all the kids run up to me and encircling me, screaming and yelling. And I'm like, what's going on? What's going on? And they're like, Mental told us you can get us any toy we want. So it's that. It's seeing, just the other day, I was at the Afrofusion, and Mayor Barack, I'm not name dropping, came with his son. And his son kept staring at the toy, and his son's probably 3, kept staring at the toy, staring at the toy. And his father was speaking at the podium. And while he was speaking, the little boy wandered all the way back to my table and picked it up and was just staring at it and staring at it. And it was one of my samples, but I had some more. So I let his dad have it, but told him he had to go on Amazon right now and buy another one. Anyway, but that little boy, and then it was like, oh, wow, he's probably never seen a toy that looks like him. And he was just mesmerized by it. And I could see that he was feeling the power. He was feeling the, I'm somebody, here's something I can play with that looks like me. So the happy moments, the excitement, if I push aside all the business things that were very incisive and necessary. But if I come back to the joy is truly about kids seeing toys that look like them, because it means so much for their psyche to be able to then go out and do whatever they're going to do in the world, because they've been affirmed by something that simple. So that's probably
It's beautiful.
Good moment.
So now we're going to get into some advice, right? Because this series is all about inspiring the next generation of entrepreneurs who will be walking through the doors of the library to do something like what you've done. So would you say, I'd like to hear from you what you think are some of the really good qualities of an entrepreneur. Like, what are the best qualities for an entrepreneur to have?
Rebound spirit. you will get knocked down. So if you can think of yourself like Dennis Rodman, wasn't he the best rebounder in the game? You always got to be going for the ball to snatch it and grab it and get it to try to make the next ball, because you will have a lot of things that don't go right for you. So one thing is the rebound spirit, and also playing what's known as the long game, that you're not, it might not happen right now, but if I'm in it for to win it, I'm in it for the long game. That it might take me several years to get it. It might take me 5 years. It might take me 10 years to get to where I want to go. So that's another one. But mine as a salesperson was always no doesn't mean no. No means not now. Okay, I got to go back. I got to change my strategy. I've got to present it a different way. I've got to talk to somebody differently. But you told me no today, but that doesn't mean I'm defeated at all. It just means like I've got to come back and figure out how to convince you. I called on Walmart for 8 years before.
You what?
8 years before I got my first sale. 8 years. I kept getting. No, and what am I looking at? I'm looking at, look at all the black people who shop. And how did I get their sales? Again, you have to be creative. That's the other part. You have to figure out. This was back in the day, okay, when they would give you data. I said, okay, I'll tell you where to put my product. Give me the sales for all your black hair products, your dark pantyhose, and your darker skin makeup. And I'll tell you exactly where you need to put my products. And then
Where in the country?
where in the country, which stores to put it in. So they gave me access to all that data. They probably would not do that for anybody today. But this was back in the day. They gave me that data, and I started putting together a grid that says, okay, this store in Atlanta, this store here in Houston. And how else did I do that? I then, to confirm it, called the NACP, called the Urban League. Again, this was footwork back in the day. You had to do things like you couldn't just send an email. Emails had just started coming out back in '85. But then confirming, is this really where black people shop? Tell me which one of these stores people go to. So that's once I gave them that data, it was like, this is where you need to put our product. But being creative in terms of where are all the doors? If I can't go in the door this way, where's the other door that I can get into? Or who knows somebody in this organization who can help me get to the next level? So that would be another one, being creative about how you got to get into what you're doing. When it comes to people, I think you very much have to follow your gut. You have to be very intuitive and understand who is really for you and who. I heard J-Lo, not that I quote her often, but she said something when they asked her about what was she grateful for. She said something about she was grateful for all the haters, all the people who told her, all the people told her what she couldn't do, that she wanted to thank them, all the people. So you've got to find out as quickly as you can who is really for you and who really is so jealous of you till they really are trying to hurt you and to make you make a lot of mistakes. Because I think you can probably raise money, you can probably get money, but the people are the most important part of any business period that you're going to have. And what is their agenda? And are they really going to help your business, or are they looking to perhaps sabotage you? And that was a lesson I wasn't ready for, that there are haters that I naively was not ready for. Back to people, you need to also have somebody who is very who has that discernment, who can tell you who's around you, who shouldn't be around you. You need,
That trusted person
yeah, that trusted person
who's gonna say, no, girl. Mm-mm.
exactly. No, that's exactly right. You need that person who's gonna read the room, read the crowd, because you also get so wrapped up into doing what you are doing, so you don't think about being 360. But being 360 is very important because you can get just completely wrapped up in, I've got to get this next product line, I've got to talk to this buyer, I've got to, and you're not paying attention to everything that's going on around you. So if you can't, you better find that 360 person who's going to be looking out for you. I think that's really, really critical for a single entrepreneur or anybody who's starting out in business. And then the part about, you totally do have to believe you're right.
Wait, what do you mean?
You have to
Like I'm
believe,
always right kind of thing?
you kind of have to believe you're right. Yes, you can listen to what everybody says and then think they might be right, but did it filter through you? Do you believe it? Do you believe that the advice you're giving is right? And then again, back to the agenda, who's it coming from? And how do you suss out whether this is right for me or not? You also have to experiment. You have to try to do things to see, I tried this worked, this didn't work. But you have to be open to trying something different, if it's something that's going to work for you. And I think you also have to be spiritual, whichever way that is for you. You know, you have to be grounded in your beliefs, and you have to be coming from a good place. You know, like the medical profession, do no harm. You know, you have to be coming from, I want to help the people who are going to buy my products. I believe that in some ways God is directing me in the correct way that I should behave, and that I'm going to be honest with people and with myself, and I'm going to do the best that I can do out there. So you have to start. Integrity. You have to start from that as your baseline. You can't be, and I hate again pop references. A friend of mine introduced me to that. I always hate the reference. A guilty pleasure. And I'm looking at them saying, what can I learn from these women? They were all in business. They were all very creative, but they weren't coming from a good place. They were making money on crack cocaine or schemes, and they were making money. So you can't just be making money. You have to be making money for the good of other people. You can't just be enriching yourself. And I think you can't be too materialistic in this world either. I think you can't be like, oh, when I get that, I'm buying a boat. Oh, when I get that, I'm getting a car. When I get that. But yeah, you have to do some things. I remember when I first walked in my first toy fair, which was 23rd and 5th Avenue, the toy building. I remember going in and seeing, my goodness, all these women have fur coats. Jesus, I gotta go get me a fur coat. I've got to fit in. And it wasn't because I wanted a fur coat. It was like, that was a uniform, that was a badge, that was a successful mark of what the women in the toy business were doing. I'm a woman in the toy business, I've got to fit in. So I'd say materialism to the point where it supports your business, but not to where it's all you're thinking.
Not defining you.
It's not defining you. So I think those are, and then be close to your family, you know, have your family be a part of what you are doing. I mean, I know I've named off several things. I hope I.
No, you did. You gave a lot of really great advice. And now I just wonder if I were to wake up tomorrow and try to be like Wyla, what are some of your daily habits? Like what keeps you in this kind of entrepreneur mode just daily? What do you do?
I actually get the most joy on any daily basis when I have a new idea. I'm really, really excited when I come up with a new idea. How do I come up with that? I usually, if it's not raining, I go outside and I sky and I'm very grateful for any and everything I have. And I ask for, you know, ideas and help, but I do a prayer meditation, and my biggest prayer is thank you. That is the biggest one that I have on a regular going basis, as well as then I get in the shower, I light candles, I turn off the light with the candles, and then I also pray. Typically, that's the 23rd Psalm. And then I try to go for a walk, but that's kind of, those are all like kind of just kind of baseline daily things I do to get myself centered and grounded. And now I'm starting yoga as, as a new thing, as a way to reaffirm all of that and to keep it going. But that answer,
Absolutely. What I hear you saying is being connected to the creator
right?
and being thankful and grounded and open to the marvels of the sky. I mean, to still be amazed by
Yeah.
nature and the simple things.
Yeah.
I think that's brilliant. Um, so I know you don't have an answer for this one.
Okay.
I mean, just knowing what you know now,
Okay.
what would you have done differently early on?
Ooh, I would have made sure I had all the money before I stepped out the door. No, no,
All
no.
right.
I would not have raised as I was going along that the stress of that is really, really difficult. I would have brought in somebody who understood and knew this industry and have, you know, had more respect for how difficult it was. In the beginning, I would have gotten an expert. One thing I didn't follow, which was probably the biggest lesson I got from Harvard Business School, was you don't have to know everything, but you have to know what you don't know. And then you either have to learn it or get someone to teach it to you or get someone to do it. You know, so, and I didn't follow that. I should have brought someone in to teach me this industry. Would it have been, would it have been different? I don't know. Would the outcome have been different? I don't know. But that's what I would have done differently. And I recommend anybody starting out in business. Yes, I did go to the expert on child psychology. I did that part of it. I did the census part of it, but I didn't pay enough attention to the industry and how it works. And I think that's what I would do differently now. And I recommend anybody going into business, find the expert and get them to pay them to teach you what it is you need to know about it. Get that consultant who's done it and who knows it, and pay them whatever their price is. It will be worth the knowledge. So that's what I would have done.
Thank you so much, Wyla.
Oh, thank you.
How can our viewers stay in touch with you and stay in touch with what's happening with Sunman?
Okay, good question. Official Sunman on Instagram is our Instagram. And my son told me, Mom, you've got 3 different Instagram accounts. I didn't realize that. But the one where I've got the cartoon picture of my face, that's the main one. YLA Eason, EASO.
Official Sunman on Instagram.
Yeah.
And Wyla Eason. So there are 2 accounts at least.
Yeah, but Official Sunman is where we post most of everything that's going on.
Thank you so much for this wonderful conversation.
Thank you. I enjoyed your questions. They were very different and made me really think.
Please join me in thanking Wyla for all of the wonderful nuggets of just insight and sharing your experiences. And I'd like to again thank the Newark Public Library for
Yes,
being
thank
an
you.
innovator in this space of creating opportunities, access to equipment for creative entrepreneurs right here at the Newark Public Library, opening next week, on the 21st, actually, Made at MPL, which is a maker space right here, is opening next week on the 21st. So you can have access to equipment and become, a Wila. You know what I mean? That is the goal. And I just really appreciate the Newark Public Library's foresight and investing in the creative economy. And I'm going to turn it back over to Ann Schatz. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Kim.